Thank you, George. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Celebrating Fatherhood, a panel discussion. It's great to have you all with us. We are fortunate enough to have a significantly seasoned staff of fathers that have a broad spectrum of experiences to give and offer you all in this discussion. I'll start by introducing all of our three guests. Steve Pascal is the program director at Children's Trust, overseeing home visiting and organization's Fatherhood Initiative. Mike Caban is a former Children's Trust program participant and now a home visitor with the organization's Healthy Family program in Fall River. And finally, Tyler Stanton has participated in Children's Trust fatherhood programming in Hampshire House of Correction and now facilitates the fatherhood groups for that same program. Good to see you all.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to start this conversation. So I want to start by first saying this kind of important question, given what has been some of the country's legacy around fatherhood. Why do we need to talk about fatherhood? Steven, you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the panel. But I think it's a great question, Craig. In the work that we're doing to support families, the role of fathers is a role that we believe is often not given the credit that it deserves because of the importance that it plays in the lives of children. And the research that we know around when fathers are involved, even beginning prenatally, is that children have better outcomes over the course of their lives when they have an active and involved father.
Steven, the Children's Trust is on a mission to stop child abuse. Tell us why partnering with and supporting dads is integral part of that work.
I think when fathers are connected early on with their children, they're able to bond and make that connection and understand their children from that social emotional standpoint. And then also when we're giving fathers information about child development during the different stages of growth for a child, they have a better understanding of age appropriate behaviors. And as a result, they become much less frustrated when they see their child exhibiting certain behaviors.
Tyler, what if you had never participated in Children's Trust fatherhood program at the jail? What might be different now for your son and you as a dad?
If I had never participated in it, it opened my eyes to the difference it makes in a father being there in their kids' lives, and especially with co-parenting. It's definitely important. I see guys that I work with that, never had a father there, and now that, they're in jail and they're not there for their kid. And, growing up, I always had a dad and he was always there. And, I was taught the right way to parent. I didn't realize it at the time, but it showed me the difference that it really makes in being a father and actually being there for your child rather than thinking that you're there for your child when you're really not.
Mike, it looks like you're back. I'm going to repeat that question and wonder, as a dad participant and practitioner, how would you differentiate Children's Trust programs and the organization's approach to working with dads?
As a participant in the program, I found that it was an absolute surreal feeling. The fact that they're actually reaching out to dads, it was something unheard of. And I actually felt inclusive. I felt like I was actually part of the family as, raising my own child. I remember looking back in the delivery room with my child, and they were like, after the child was born, they will automatically go to mom and ask mom. And even though she was sleeping, they will go and wake her and ask her all these questions when I'm wide awake and ready to answer the questions. So and it felt like I was part of the furniture at one point, and I had to like voice up and advocate for myself and say, she's sleeping. What is it that you need that in order, to advocate? Um, but then, but it was like a breath of fresh air when I actually was involved in a program and actually asking, how's dad? Where is dad?
That's great to hear. Just by asking, where's dad, is modeling for everyone, including the mom, to recognize that there is a partnership and that can be grown and nurtured and expanded in all kinds of ways, and for fathers to be seen, critical. Steven, another question. What do you think are some of the misconceptions people have about dads?
I think the main misconception that people have about dads is that dads don't want to be involved in the lives of their children, that dads are more focused on just being the breadwinner. When we know the research shows us that that's not the case, that dads are taking more of an active role in parenting. When we think about single parents, a quarter of single parents, almost a quarter, are fathers who are taking care of their children. And so, I think another misconception is that fatherhood operates within the context of what we consider the traditional family, right? And I don't think there's a traditional family anymore. I try to liken fatherhood to what I would call like the Tom Brady dad, right? Where, when we look at the numbers, like 40% of births happen with parents who are not married, right? And 5 years later, dad may not be in a relationship with the mother of that child, but it doesn't mean that dad is not actively involved in the life of that child, right? When we look at fathers overall, 9% of fathers have a child with another partner outside of a current relationship that they're in, right? And we think about children, right? 80% of fathers are living in a household with either all of their children or some of their children. So parenting and being a father in today's world is very dynamic. It's very different. And so we have to be able to adapt to that. And even if fathers are not in romantic relationships with the mothers of their children, we need to be encouraging healthy co-parenting.
Mike, can you tell us about a dad you've worked with and how you have partnered with him and his family?
I have one dad who was had a traumatic brain injury due to being hit by a car. So the gentleman with the brain injury was also adopted. So he was looking at the situation as, how can I even be a dad if my own family didn't want me, right? So he's thinking to himself, what if I start having those feelings? What if I start having those feelings that I don't, want my child? So the impact that I think that I was able to have with this family was to let him know that he was able to do, if he himself believed that he can be a good dad, that's just the beginning, right? My job as a practitioner was to give him those tools. All right, I educated him on how to change a diaper, on how to feed a child, what cues a child had and what they meant. And once he was able to put those things together, he was doing things on his own without him even knowing it, right? I will go in the next week and find and ask, how has parenting been for you today, right? And he'll sit back and he says, that's a funny question. That's a funny way of asking that question, right? And he says, actually, it was difficult at first, but right now it's getting easier. I know how to change a diaper. I know how to make a bottle, right? And all this, he was doing it with one hand because he wasn't really able to move the other hand. Until much later, I see progress that he was, with physical therapy, he was able to move his hand and move his arm. And he was able to share, it's like, hey, now it's getting a lot easier. And I was able to make that analogy. He's like, you know how when you first started off, you were having a difficult time moving that arm, right? And now you're able to move it like with practice and with the tools that they gave you, similar to what you're doing right now with your son, parenting. You started off with some doubt, and look at you now. You're able to do that perfectly, beautifully.
Tyler, do you want to say any last things?
I just want to thank everybody for being here and listening, and thank the Children's Trust. They've been a huge part of my life the last few years and my kids' life. I love every second of it. I love seeing other fathers grow. I love seeing myself grow, and it's funny because our children don't realize it now, but they're also watching us grow while we watch them grow. So it's a journey, and I love it. And that's about it.
Absolutely. Those are wise words. I didn't grow up knowing or having a father and had to figure it out on my own. And thankfully had a partner who was a great partner to help me learn that. And now I'm a grandfather and can watch my daughter and her husband do that same thing. And so these multi-generationals, and this is what Children's Trust is helping to do by bringing fathers into the equation, having healthy co-parenting and co-partnering for the sake of children. And that means our next generation will be that much better. Listen, you all, I want to thank each and every one of you, Mike, Tyler, Steven, for being here and for sharing your experiences and speaking to the value that the Children's Trust brings here. This is a really rich conversation, and we are grateful for all that you brought to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Absolutely. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, and nurture on.
Nurture on. I love that.